Remember when they hyped this show as the "You Won't See It Coming"? What was that all about? Oh boy, the pandemic era, or as what WWE likes to call it, the Thunderdome era. This was a time where there was no fans, so they used a bunch of screens and pretended to have the fans care. From what I understand, people were actually doing this, and then over time, they just started recycling past fans. Um, I know that a couple of people were annoyed by this pay period because it was like fans were being told how to cheer, who to boo, and it was just like it was weird. And then they would like take you off if you didn't listen. It was just like a whole thing, and yeah, this was kind of dumb. Granted, it was an upgrade from not having fans at all. There was a side of me that wishes that they just had the NXT roster be the crowd, and then they basically help get elevated down the road. I think that would have been actually really cool. Sorry, I was just getting my phone. But yeah, this was a very horrible time. But I will say that um, with no crowds and no hype, they really had to kind of push the envelope and try to see who they can push, who they can build up. And it was up to McMahon to actually be like, okay, let's see, let's give Apollo Crews a shot. Let's actually have MVP's vision of the Hurt business. Let's actually do this. Let's actually do that. And some stuff worked, some stuff didn't work, like Raw Underground. Remember how awful that was? But for the most part, I was just like whatever. Granted, AEW was killing it around this point, and WWE is just unfortunate because none of this stuff is stuff that either you guys remember or will ever watch. But let's just talk about it. Bayley defeated Asuka for the women's championship, the SmackDown one to be exact. Fine match. This was basically, I mean, the real feud was Bayley and Sasha Banks being the all-time champions, going up against Asuka since Kairi Sane was MIA, or I believe she got fired up to this point. But I did like the story of Asuka fighting Bayley and Sasha Banks at two different periods of time. So that was actually a really cool concept, and I don't know, for the most part, it was enjoyable, and I did enjoy this match. This was around the time where Bayley was like the top goat SmackDown heel around this time, so kudos for that. The Street Profits defeated Andrade and Angel Garza for the Raw Tag Team Championships. For some reason, Kevin Owens was on commentary. It's just like they had nothing for the tag team division, so they just threw this in. Um, I'm aware that AJ Styles fought Jeff Hardy for the IC belt. Why wasn't that the match here? Like they could have had room for that. I feel like Jeff Hardy and AJ Styles, not that match that they had on SmackDown the previous night, wasn't all that great, but it was better than half of this show. This match I don't even remember it happening. I guess this was just like their redemption for Andrade's injury, leading to Austin Theory replacing him at WrestleMania. I guess this was like the substituted match. Like, I don't know, there was so much. And then what happened to the War Raiders? Weren't those guys feuding around this point? As dumb as those segments were, at least it made sense for those guys to feud for the tag belts. Why this? Mandy Rose versus Sonya Deville in a no DQ loser leaves WWE match. Now this was actually a good match and a good feud. It's just unfortunate that both girls went nowhere. Mandy Rose went down to NXT, had a great Toxic Attraction storyline, and she was pretty much built as like one of like the next top faces of the women's division until she started doing OnlyFans and doing a lot of inappropriate stuff, showing off her body, and it was just a bad image for WWE, so they just fired her. Sonya Deville had some great promos around this time, but she just never amounted to nothing. This was supposed to be a hair versus hair match, but then there was a very unfortunate incident where like some crazy ass bastard went out to Sonya Deville's house, was walking around. Luckily, nothing happened to the two, but then they had to take it to court. They didn't want Sonya Deville be bald, so they just made it a loser leaves WWE match instead. But yeah, I was very disappointed that they never did nothing with Sonya Deville. I actually liked her promo work. Her wrestling skills weren't the greatest, but she had it like, I don't know, she just looked like a star and she acted like a star and she just sounded like a star. I'm very disappointed that she never really did much. I kind of wish that she went to AEW and did something there. Instead, they just made her like co-manager with Adam Pearce, and that was awful. Seth Rollins versus Dominik Mysterio in a street fight. This was the story of how Dominik Mysterio would eventually make his in-ring debut. They've been teasing it for a while with Survivor Series 2019 when he tried to help Rey Mysterio beat Brock Lesnar but failed to do so. This was basically going to be the lead up to Dominik Mysterio wrestling in the ring. It was just a matter of when and where. There was a whole thing of like Seth Rollins and like some sort of awkward like midlife crisis after announcing that Becky Lynch is pregnant. Seth Rollins couldn't be WWE champion, so he just goes on a mental tear. He basically pulls out Rey Mysterio's eye with this goofy ass looking toy eye. It was a whole story of him going after Rey Mysterio's eye. Dominik Mysterio wants revenge, so he makes his in-ring debut and has this match. And they had a pretty damn good match. Dominik Mysterio's first match was really good, and people were like, okay, this is like the best it's gonna get for Dominik Mysterio. Obviously, he had to lose because there's no way Dominik Mysterio was gonna beat Seth Rollins in his first ever match. And I'm glad that they went this route. I do like Seth Rollins playing with mind games with the Mysterios wearing the Halloween Havoc outfit. This was around a cool period of time where Seth Rollins was like a god, but the theme song was awful. They eventually pivoted and went back to like the infamous oh, but here he was still playing a god. Murphy was his manager at some point, like his tag team partner. This was a really weird time because then they led to like Aaliyah and Buddy Murphy being a couple. It was a little weird because Aaliyah was like at the verge of like 19 or some shit. It was such an awkward time for wrestling. But like I said, this match was pretty good. I do like the back and forth. I like Rey Mysterio's interference. But for the most part, I like that they handcuffed Rey Mysterio to basically watch Dominik Mysterio get his ass beat. And then Seth Rollins gets the victory. Good storytelling. That was actually pretty cool. I just wish that the follow-up was there. I think Dominik Mysterio as a babyface was so bad, but it led to the best run of his life, the Judgment Day. So Dominik Mysterio wasn't quite there yet, but he definitely had the in-ring ability. It was just a matter of his character. So no more vanilla midget, no more vanilla Dominik Mysterio. Sooner or later, we do get Dirty Dom. Asuka comes back to fight Sasha Banks for the Raw Women's Championship. After losing to Bayley, she wasn't confident enough to beat Sasha Banks, but sure enough, she beats her in this match. And this was around the story period where Sasha Banks would win the belt, only to lose it in her first defense. This was slowly building to Sasha Banks versus Bayley, so there was that good thing that was going on around the time. Yeah, I was okay with this. So there was that for sure. Asuka was basically one of the best things to happen during the pandemic. So it was always the people you never expected. It's just unfortunate that once we go back to crowds, these people never amount to nothing. The one that came close to amounting to something was Drew McIntyre when he was WWE champion. He fought Randy Orton here, and this was a great feud. Randy Orton was on a tear, taking down Edge, Big Show, even taking down Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels. Christian came back out of retirement for this. But the true story is like Drew McIntyre just wanted to tear him apart. Randy Orton was on a roll. This was some great promo work when Drew McIntyre talks about like, Randy Orton, when was the last time you sat down with a Kevin Owens and something like, you don't care about this business. It was a great promo. I love the back and forth. Drew McIntyre was clearly meant to be the face of the WWE. Then Cody Rhodes came by and just swapped them out of the way. And Drew McIntyre was a very underrated babyface. He's a way much better heel, but damn, he was very underrated as the face of the company. There's a side of me that kind of wishes he goes back to face, see how this works out. But I was very happy with this match. A good back and forth. pure wrestling, and then Drew McIntyre gets the victory. There was a side of me that kind of wished Randy Orton won, only for Drew McIntyre to win it back, which is what they do anyways, only with the Fiend's involvement. I do kind of wish that Randy won here. He wins it back at Night of Champions, and then the rubber matches inside Hell in a Cell. Can Drew McIntyre survive Randy Orton inside the cell? And then you move on to the Fiend. But I was still happy with this match, and I was still happy with this reign. Drew McIntyre was a GOAT in the pandemic era. He truly was the face of the pandemic era. But then we get our main event, Braun Strowman versus The Fiend Bray Wyatt in a Falls Count Anywhere match for the Universal Championship. The story here was well, what you expect. Braun Strowman replaces Roman Reigns against Goldberg at WrestleMania. Bray Wyatt wants his championship back that he lost from Goldberg, but he was too busy with the Firefly Funhouse and John Cena. And then we get this match, and dude, this was a horrible feud. Remember the swamp fight? Remember Braun Strowman using a mask to distract Bray Wyatt? It was so stupid. If anything, I would have had Bray Wyatt take a break after the Firefly Funhouse. Give Braun Strowman like a workhorse run, fighting guys like Sheamus, Corbin, even Miz and Morrison individually. I kind of wish that like there was some credible guys for Braun Strowman to fight before he eventually drops the belt to Bray Wyatt. Because I think this should have been the payoff overall. It's just how we got there that was so stupid. And all I gotta say is that this match was alright. It's what you expect, but at the end of the day, Bray Wyatt gets the victory. But what was this whole you won't see it coming thing? It was actually the return of Roman Reigns. We all assumed he was retired because he kept talking about like, you know what, I'm done with professional wrestling. My top priority is my kids, my health. And there was like, what can bring back Roman Reigns? And it is the heel turn. One of the greatest things to ever happen in the pandemic and the 2020s, and it was the rise of Roman Reigns, the tribal chief. This was one of the greatest eras in Roman Reigns' career, and it all started here at this time. He didn't even win the belt yet. He just held it up high. Then like a week later at Payback is when he officially wins the belt, and it led to one of the greatest reigns in recent times. I gotta say, this show was actually pretty good. It was a little bit distracting not watching this with an actual crowd, but for the most part, the wrestling was good. If anything, the only things I would erase would probably be the Street Profits tag team match. Mandy and Sonya with Deville was good, but it was very odd having this here. Like, it just didn't feel SummerSlam. Everything else, though, I can't complain. I can't believe I'm saying this because it happened in the pandemic. It's a very underrated show. But this show gets a B. Good job. I can't believe they actually managed to pull it off. And it got us excited for the future of the WWE during a very, very difficult time in our lives. Yeah, this was a good show. On to 2021. This show is 4 hours long. Let's see how well it follows up. But anyways, take care, everybody.